Welcome to Ignite Success TV. I'm your host, Snowden McFall, 25-year professional speaker, 6-time author, and women's coach in confident public speaking and money business breakthroughs. And with me today is Dr. Kimberly Allen. She is quite renowned and respected in this community, and she is the president of 90 Forward. Welcome, Kim. So glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Snowden.
So Kim, tell us about 90 Forward, because you're doing some really wonderful work there.
Absolutely. 90 Forward is a volunteer organization that's composed of many different folks from around the community. And our goal is very simple, and it's to end racism here in our city. And we do that by creating some safe spaces for people to come together to learn from each other, build trusting relationships, but also move together towards some collective action.
Which is so, so wonderful, and it's desperately needed. And we need to put an end to structural racism and all the different underpinnings of racism in this country. Tell us about the race cards. Is this something that you created?
It's actually, so there was an original group of 90 Forward members who are still part of that group, and they are dynamic people who said we need a tool to help others to have the conversation that we as friends and colleagues were having in our professional space. And so a group of folks from 90 Forward came together, worked with sociologists and different researchers to put those questions out there, the cards together. And it's a 52 deck of cards, just like a playing deck, like a deck of cards. And each card has a discussion question related to race. And they are meant to spark some conversation and give people the opportunity to learn from each other in a different way that's not as divisive as we sometimes experience when talking to race, but really giving people a chance to enter into a race discussion with an open mind and an open heart.
Right, and I have had the opportunity to use these cards. I was on the Leadership Jacksonville virtual luncheon yesterday, and we used the cards, and they were very powerful, and they sparked some really excellent discussion. And I think one of the key points that came out was about the nature of fear and its factor in racism. Want to comment about that?
Fear is, I think, a lot of it. It's fear of change. It's fear of the unknown. It's fear of otherness. But what I typically say when we do those conversations is, at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want to belong. We want to feel safe, and we want to be loved. And if we can agree on that basic principle, we can all move forward together. And fear can have no place in that space.
I think that's really true. I went to a One Jacks event many years ago, shortly after I moved to Jacksonville 14 years ago, and we were all having a discussion. It was a wonderful discussion, multiracial discussion, and we were talking about what would you do if you saw a gang of boys coming towards you? And then the question was posed whether it was white or black, and all of us answered the same way, which was really interesting, all different colors and all different backgrounds, and that was, well, a gang of anything can be fearful. And if you don't know the people that you're dealing with, you want to observe your own fear, be smart, take care of yourself, but you also want to make sure that you don't have your own biases in the way. And I think that fear is such an important thing to address in the whole racism issue, because when you have knowledge and experience of people who are different from you, and you have the opportunity to interact, we're all one race. We're all humans. And we all, as you said, want to be loved and to share love. So
absolutely, we do.
So tell us about the virtual forums that you all are doing, because I think those are wonderful.
Yes, so we had an opportunity to actually partner with One Jacks on one of them, the most recent one, which was a race card conversation with two of our elected officials, Councilwoman Brenda Priestley Jackson and School Board Member Daryl Willey, along with a couple of folks from the 90 Forward Board who were able to participate. And those forums have really been an opportunity for I think in a virtual environment to still make sure that folks know race, that we're all dealing with the racial tensions of what's happening right now. You're not alone, and there are people who are thinking about this all day, every day, and working to make sure that the city is better for everyone involved. And so we have done a couple of these forums where it's been informative, getting information from the professionals in their different areas, but also giving the community a chance to talk with each other using the race cards. So we've had breakout groups as a result of those virtual sessions. And we've also hosted a few virtual events with other groups around town, with youth, with other adults, to be able to have that safe and that brave space to talk about race and again, learn from each other.
Right, and I think that's so important. What advice would you have, Kim, for white people who want to show their allyship, besides speaking up when they see racism happen and when people make racist comments, and reading and educating themselves? What advice would you have specifically for them?
Absolutely. The one thing that I have been saying to everyone is the awareness and comfort in being able to talk about race is a spectrum, right? There are folks who are on one side who are new and don't know what to say and don't really know if it's the appropriate time. And there are folks who are further along in their journeys. But the one thing that I think white allies can do is you are in a lot of spaces. You're serving on boards, you're in boardrooms, you are working for different companies, you're in leadership in a lot of different places. Look around the table, in the tables that you occupy. And if everyone looks like you, ask the question, why is that? And then work to seek out the perspective of other people to bring different perspectives to the table. It's not enough to say, I have friends and they told me this. I think you have to be able to hear from people of color directly in order to truly be able to make some changes in that space. But also, don't allow people of color to bear the burden of always having to educate. Be sure to educate yourself and consult with people of color, but don't make them the sole educator on how to interact with, rely on, pull stories from people of color. So diversify your circles and your tables and make sure that those folks have a voice and that their voice is valued in the same way as others.
Right, and I think advocating for them as well and making sure that they get heard so that they're not overrun. Women are often, I know, in conference rooms and boardrooms, overrun and interrupted by men, and making sure that we advocate for Black women, people of color, speaking up for them and make sure that their voice is heard. I think that's very important. I was
Absolutely.
speaking to a group of executives, largely male whites, in New England last spring, and a year ago last spring, and talking about the paucity of Black and women board members on boards of directors. And we were talking about how important it was to have diversity. And it was fascinating to me because at the end of the presentation, I asked one of the things that they had learned the most that they would take action on. And I was very surprised to hear the leader of the group say, I realize I don't have any minorities or any women on my boards, and I'm going to change that. And that's the only way that if awareness comes about, people will make those changes, and we have to. So important. And so, Kim, what would you suggest in terms of people who want to use the race cards and have an opportunity to interact with them? What's the best way for them to get them, and how can they reach out to 90 Forward?
Absolutely. The race cards are available for purchase at www.90forward.org. And if you want to consider hosting a race cards event or just want to know more information about 90 Forward, you can email racecards@90forward.org.
Wonderful. And do you need any volunteers as time goes on? Is that something you're looking for?
We are always looking for volunteers. We are an all volunteer organization, so the more the merrier.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for the incredible work you do for our community. I really appreciate everything that you're doing, and I know that the work that 90 Forward is doing and the race cards are making a big difference in our community, and let's pray that we move towards a more mutually loving and respectful community.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Snowden.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for being on Ignite Success, Kim.